This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome in, everybody, to this episode of the DocNJock Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Adam the Jock Strozinski. On today's episode, we are dedicating our entire show to a fantastic pay-per-view, AEW's Full Gear, that takes place on Saturday night. We have a ton in store for you. Of course, we're going to give you news and notes. What's going on with Bray Wyatt? Maybe going to Hollywood? We've got the lowdown on that. Of course, 3 ROH stars could be heading to Impact after the releases from ROH. And Keith Lee, there is some news about Keith Lee that we are going to discuss, and Becky Lynch making waves. So we're going to do all of that in this show today. And doing it with me as always. He's the one. He's the only. He's the other old-fashioned guy on this show. He's a man after my own heart because he drinks the same thing I drink. He's the one. He's the only. He is the Doc, John Macaroon. What's up, cuz?
Yeah, I'm excited for the AEW PayPerView. And obviously, friend of the podcast, Dennis Farrell, doing great things. Make sure to check out. And sometimes it's really great. Sometimes you're just scrolling Twitter and you're just looking for other kind of content. And all of a sudden you see a post from Dennis Farrell and it's like, we got Tony Khan. And I'm like, yeah, I had a feeling eventually that Dennis would interview the higher-ups at AEW. One day he's going to have Vince McMahon on the line, and we're going to be lighting up the comment section. But really good podcast, and Tony Khan gave him a lot of time, and is really good podcast. So make sure you check out the work that Dennis does as well. But AEW has a card that when you look at it, when you sent it, I was like, oh my God, it's rounding into shape. Has the potential to be a very exciting card. I think that, and I know wrestling companies and companies in general, their primary purpose is to make money. But I think AEW, sticking with the notion of 4 to 5 pay-per-views a year, makes it so that it feels special, like you're excited to see it, whether we catch it live or we catch it through replays or grades and then see it. I like this card. And even though the high end obviously are the things that are going to draw the most in terms of the CM Punks, the Daniel Bryans, and things like that, there are some matches that I think could have the potential to do some things with how the buildups have been, with how the storylines have developed. Each match of these 10 matches has a little bit of a buildup, and you don't really get to see that in a lot of pay-per-views where every buildup has been something that you've seen on television that you can say, oh, okay, there's a feud going on here. So I'm excited for it. I think it has the potential to be a really good one, a November pay-per-view that's going to live up to the hype, and I think as well as maybe Survivor Series has a chance too, based on potentially the storylines that have been developed. But I'm really excited for Full Gear.
Yeah, this is, much like you said, this is one of those pay-per-views where you've got to see a little bit of this on TV. None of these matches are what we would call filler. It is all things that have storylines that have been going on now for a couple of months. And even if you look at the main event, which we'll end up getting to it, but it's going to be Kenny Omega versus Hangman Page. That match alone has been building for over a year. You can take it back to last year's AEW Full Gear, where Omega ended up beating Hangman Page and stood over him and told him how he was proud of him. And they worked that back into the Go Home episode of Dynamite this week. So there's so much here. There's so many layers. And that's part of the reason we want to give you basically one whole episode dedicated to this pay-per-view, because there's so much going on here. And the first match of the night is going to be the Nyla Rose, Jamie Hayter versus Thunder Rosa and Hikaru Shida. Now, Shida and Thunder Rosa, I think this is a way to kind of get them back into a match. Thunder Rosa and Shida have been on TV quite a bit. Nyla Rose has been kind of coming in and going. Jamie Hayter has basically been following Britt Baker around. So I think this right here it's a nice tag team match. It gets everybody involved, and it gets to kind of show off some of their stuff. I don't know how you feel, but I love Shida. I love watching Shida work in the ring. I also think Thunder Rosa is fantastic in the ring as well. Those are two women that you can really build your women's division around, and they've done just that. So I'm excited for this match, and this is your first match of the night. This is the one that's kicking the show off, so I'm excited for it. What do you think about this match?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have a hard time really when you see the name Thunder Rosa and Shida. I have a hard time believing that Nyla Rose and Jamie Hayter are going to get the W and get over here. But I'm looking forward to a great match, and it sets the tone. So for me, I think Thunder Rosa and Hikaru Shida take care of business. I think it's going to be a great match.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's going to be Thunder Rosa, and I think it's going to be Shida as well. Shida's just, I don't know, like I said, she's on another level. I love watching her perform. Nyla Rose comes in and she's big, right? She works like a big girl works, and I think it fills a niche. But I think in the end, it's going to be Thunder Rosa, and I think it's going to be Shida for this one. All right, the show really gets underway. With the next match: Miro versus Bryan Danielson. I still want to go back to my WWE roots here. Miro versus Bryan Danielson. Now, for this match, this is the AEW World Title Tournament Eliminator. This is the final match of that tournament. Whoever wins this gets a shot at the AEW World Title. Now, this will have some long-lasting implications depending on what happens in the main event. We have been building for quite some time towards a Bryan Danielson Kenny Omega match. So you could see Bryan Danielson maybe favored over Miro here. I know last night on Twitter, a good friend of the podcast, Adam Salgett, ended up tweeting both of us asking if Miro's hot wife is going to show up at this match, which I could see happen and could see that leading to a Miro win as he kind of gets involved with Bryan Danielson here. Where do you see this one going? Because there's a lot of layers here, and it's not just one of those things where this match is confined to what takes place in the ring tonight. This is one of those things that's kind of like when you drop a stone in a pond. It's going to have ripple effects that are going to impact other storylines that are kind of branching out from it.
Yeah, this one is so tough because both really kind of could benefit from it. You kind of have a feel that Daniel Bryan, or like I've done it too, that
it's hard, man.
Bryan Danielson.
You've watched him for 10 years on WWE. It's hard.
All right, and of course the AEW announcers have done it quite a bit. CM Punk did it.
Jim Ross does it all the time.
Exactly. The best was when he did it, and he's like, "See, Jim, you're not the only one that's doing it." But the American Dragon, I think, gets over. I mean, I think that yes, you debut her potentially as somebody that gets involved in the match, but I don't see potentially that Miro is the bigger star here that's worthy of getting over. I think you just got to get him established as a beast, and kind of one of those things where he loses the match, and then he ends up being the star anyway at the end, where he destroys Danielson after the match. You know, kind of how we've seen that time and time again. I think that Miro has to snap and then establish himself as somebody that's getting pissed off, something like that along those lines. But I just want to see in a tournament, I just think Danielson's the guy to beat, right?
Yeah, and this is something that we've seen AEW do before, and it really does help make stars. It's not one of those things that I feel a lot of wrestling organizations do well, where you can have a guy go in there and give the performance of a lifetime and still lose, but still come out one of the bigger stars from that match after taking that loss. And this is one of those matches where I could see that happen because both Bryan Danielson can work. We all know this. The guy's fantastic in the ring. Miro is a guy who can work, and we all know this. He's fantastic in the ring. I do agree. I think you could see a debut of a.k.a. Miro's hot wife. I'm not sure what she's going to go by, but I do think you could see her. I do think you could see her get involved in this, and I do think she could play a part in it. But in the end, I think Bryan Danielson winning, I think that's the way this should go. Because
I mean, sexy CJ works for me.
Sexy CJ does work.
Sexy CJ Perry, baby, let's go.
It would be interesting to if Miro did win this, but I think Bryan Danielson right now, he is the bigger star. I think you go that direction. I think Miro comes out looking like a star when it's all said and done, because similar to what you said, Bryan Danielson gets the win as he's celebrating. Miro ends up snapping and just beats the bejesus out of him. And I think that could spark its own feud to kind of tie Bryan Danielson up for just a little bit before he moves on to whatever's next for him. So I think it's a good way to kind of build him out and build out both these guys.
See, my first thought is always going to be the corny young boy kind of response. Now, looking deeper into her name, Miss Catherine sounds even more elegant, and you put her in a nice dress, kind of like the Miss Elizabeth kind of thing. Miss Catherine sounds really good, or Miss Catherine Joy. I mean, you could go a lot of different ways with it. So I like Miss Catherine a lot. Sparkling black dress, shows up there like just the elegant badass that she is, that can beat you up kind of like in that Sensational Sherry kind of mold.
Yeah, I was going to say kind of like a cross between Miss Elizabeth with the more refined look,
Right.
but with the tenacious tendencies of Scary Sherry.
Yeah, maybe like one eye has the black on it, something a little bit unique. I'm curious to see if they get her involved. I mean, you almost would have to think that they would. She's had enough time, and if it's not today, then it'll be down the road real quickly that she gets involved. Man, I can't wait to see this match. It's going to be good.
Absolutely. This is one of those pay-per-views, man. We're only 2 matches in, and I'm so geared up for it. I can't wait to watch this. I'm so pumped for it. It just, like you said, the card screams that this is going to be a great pay-per-view. Next match is Dr. Britt Baker, DMD. She will be defending her AEW Women's Championship. She, of course, will have Jamie Hayter, and she will have Rebel in her corner, taking on Tyconti, who will be backed up by Anna Jay. Who do you have winning this one?
Yeah, is it time to set forth the course with a new women's champion? No, I think Dr. Britt Baker still has a run in her. She's still the more over wrestler. I don't see that potentially Tyconti is just ready yet to take over that position when you say, okay, she's the staple of the women's division. So for me, Dr. Britt Baker takes it down. She gets over.
Yeah, I think Dr. Britt Baker wins this. And I think they're similar to what we just talked about with Miro and Bryan Danielson. There is a way to do this where Tyconti comes out looking fantastic. And, of course, Jamie Hayter and, of course, Rebel are going to play a part in this. And they're going to help get Tyconti over because they're going to interfere in this match the whole way through. And they're going to add a little bit of an asterisk next to this win for Britt Baker. But I think Britt Baker retains her championship. She gets the win. I think Tyconti comes out looking incredibly strong in this match. Now, this is a match that the next match has been a little bit weird, right? I don't know if a lot of people have really been into it. I'm not sure if a ton of people have really wanted to see this. For me, at times, this has really seemed like it's kind of a grab at getting former big-name UFC fighters involved because of their names. But I'm interested to see what takes place because what unfolded on AEW Dynamite between the Inner Circle and Men of the Year was quite interesting to me. And an American Top Team, of course, is included in all of this. So we have this 10-man Minneapolis street fight. So this is just going to be a brawl. It's going to take place probably all over the entire arena. Inner Circle does a lot of these. If this is probably their 4th or 5th one that they've done on a pay-per-view. They don't always win all of them, but they do a lot of these. And I think what happens here, these matches are really good. And they're good for a couple different reasons. Because it saves the body of a guy like Chris Jericho. All right, Chris Jericho, obviously an older wrestler. This type of match will also hide some of the shortcomings of some of the UFC fighting guys. So guys hasn't really wrestled. A guy like Junior Dos Santos, who hasn't really wrestled. Andrei Arlovski, guy who hasn't really wrestled. They actually really have fought, but they haven't really wrestled. On top of that, this type of match helps to really put a guy like Ethan Page, a guy like Scorpio Sky, who we're both huge fans of. It really helps give them a platform to work when they're going up against guys who are made, like Chris Jericho. Also, I think Sammy Guevara has done a ton in a very short amount of time. Sammy Guevara is becoming a face of AEW, which I think is fantastic. So the Inner Circle, headed up by Chris Jericho, Jake Hager, Sammy Guevara, Santana and Ortiz, who we both love, versus Men of the Year, which is Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky, and American Top Team, which will consist of Dan Lambert, Junior Dos Santos, and Andrei Arlovski, compete in a 10-man Minnesota street fight. When this is all said and done, I think the Inner Circle comes out the better team, and I think they end up winning this match.
Ooh, okay, I'm down. See, it's kind of like one of those things where what's the purpose of bringing in Junior Dos Santos? What's the purpose of bringing in Top Team if they're not going to get the W? It's kind of like one of those cute gimmicky things, So give me the Inner Circle getting defeated at the pay-per-view.
So you're going to take American Top Team, and you're going to take Men of the Year. All right, interesting. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I don't know, man. I just feel like there has been especially with the way things ended on Wednesday night, with American Top Team standing over the Inner Circle. You know how kind of the booking goes. And maybe it's just because we're conditioned because of WWE. But generally the team that ends up doing that ends up standing tall on the go home show usually ends up falling at the pay-per-view. So we'll see what happens there. Now we've got a singles match that basically has been a stellar build. It has been a build that has walked lines, has crossed lines, and has left you kind of scratching your head with some of the promos that MJF has cut. This is just a straight up singles match. MJF versus Darby Allen. These guys right here. We talked about Sammy Guevara being a face of AEW. These guys are two other faces of AEW. You can slap a picture of Darby Allen up just about anywhere, and everybody's going to know exactly who that is. You could listen to the first 4 sentences of a promo that MJF is cutting, and you know exactly who that is and who he's about to lace into. So these two guys are basically pillars of AEW and what they want their future to be. This looks to be a fantastic match. At some point, I do expect Darby Allen's dad, Sting, to get involved in this match. I do expect the gigantic man, Wardlow, to get involved in this match. I think Darby Allen wins this match. I think this is going to be an incredible match because, again, both these guys can go. Darby Allen has zero problems putting his body on the line every single time he goes out there. And I think MJF is, I don't want to say that he wasn't this before, but I think he's becoming a much more smooth ring general. He's a guy who can really dictate a match inside the ring, tell the other wrestler what he kind of wants them to do, and they can kind of set up and build towards a great finale. So I think he's learned a lot by wrestling with Chris Jericho and wrestling against Chris Jericho. And I think he brings some of that knowledge into the ring with a guy who pretty much lays it all in line every time he steps foot in the ring in Darby Allen. I think Darby Allen ends up winning this match, though.
I can't wait to see all the stops, all the tricks that MJF tries to pull, but I agree. I think Darby Allen needs to get over in this one, but I would not be terribly surprised if MJF does some things to cheat and maybe have this feud continue a little bit down the road where maybe you get 2 more quality matches out of it. So I can't wait to see it, but I do think Darby Allen gets this round.
All right, next match. Lucha Brothers, Rey Fenix and Pentagon. I don't know how you feel, but I absolutely love the Lucha Brothers. I get hyped every time they come out. Penta, his makeup and his just wardrobe terrifies me. It is the stuff of nightmares, and I think it's great. I love it. I'm enraptured by it when he comes out, just because watching him and looking at the way he kind of builds his character, it's amazing to me. They're going to be taking on FTR, so Cash Wheeler, Dash Hardwood, for the AEW Tag Team Championship. This is a hard one, man, because you could make a case for either one of these teams. I want Lucha Brothers to win this. I'm going to go Lucha Brothers. I think this builds to a match between FTR and the Lucha Brothers in AAA, where the Lucha Brothers take down FTR for the AAA Tag Team Championships because FTR currently holds those. I'm going to go Lucha Brothers just because I want them to win. I don't know if that's the right choice. I could be wrong here.
Really good, right? I can't wait to see this one. For the AEW World Tag Team Champions, Lucha Brothers have done well. I don't see AEW doing the flip-flop kind of thing in the tag team division. Do you? I think that titles are meant to be won, meant to be defended over a period of time, and I don't think you want to devalue it. So I think you're spot on, but I know that you're thinking that FTR potentially is one of those elite tag teams and they just lost it. But Lucha Brothers, they should hold the belt probably for a year. I mean, all the tag teams that they could get in the ring with. So I think the champs hold it down.
Nice. I like that. Now, this match, CM Punk versus Eddie Kingston. This is a match where in a very short amount of time, I've gotten incredibly interested. And I really do believe it's Eddie Kingston. Eddie Kingston does a fantastic job selling on the microphone. Eddie Kingston does a fantastic job building to a match. And the other week when Eddie Kingston cut a promo, I sat back and I scratched my head. I was like, man, I even think I said it on this podcast. I said, I wonder if there's any truth to any of this. And boy, do I have a scoop for you. All right. I was tooling around on the internet the other night and I found some information from Dave Meltzer, and I'm going to give it to you all in a second. But before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about this. CM Punk is obviously massive star, huge star. He helped save a lot of people from turning away from wrestling. All right. Eddie Kingston is a guy. He's a grinder. He's a guy who goes out there, lays it on the line. He for the most part, right, we both agree, doesn't look great in the ring with his ring gear on, but the guy can cut a promo and he can get you so invested in a match that you didn't even care about. And that's where I was with this match. I didn't even care about this match. I was like, I don't even know why these guys are fighting. Like, this right here was going to be the filler. It's a way to get CM Punk on, and it's a way to keep Eddie Kingston active, is how I looked at this match. And Eddie Kingston came out and cut that promo on CM Punk a couple weeks ago, and I was like, dude, I want to see these two guys fight. And I hope Eddie Kingston whips his ass, just beats the shit out of CM Punk, which I know is an unpopular opinion, but I don't care. As I was tooling around on the internet, I was like, man, I wonder if there's any truth to any of this stuff with Eddie Kingston, with CM Punk. And I found this from Dave Meltzer, all right? An unnamed wrestler told him they were witness to a verbal confrontation between Punk and Kingston backstage at an IWA Mid-South show very early in their careers. There was an overlap between Punk and Kingston working for the company from 2003 to 2005, which is likely where this confrontation would have taken place. The wrestler told Meltzer, I was sitting right there in the IWA Mid-South locker room when Punk called Eddie and his partner at the time, Blackjack Maracano, fat, lazy, and unsafe. Maracano had just accidentally injured Delirious in a previous match, and Punk was hot about it, so he just buried them nonstop. I could see why Eddie hung on to that hate and that anger for so long. Man, if that doesn't add a layer to this, and I don't know if that was the intent. I don't know if this is like something that is actual. But if we're going off of this, if we're going off of what we know, Eddie Kingston cut that promo a couple weeks ago. And when I said, man, I wonder if there's any truth to any of this, there is truth to some of this. And Eddie Kingston has harbored that and has brought that to the ring. And I could have swore when we talked about this, I told you CM Punk seemed almost like he was shocked and a little bit awed by some of this. Like he was taken aback by it. He was a little bit confused by it. And I think that's just how real it is for Eddie Kingston. I don't know if he tapped into a nerve that was struck years ago, and that's where a lot of that came from. I don't know if this is all part of a gimmick and Eddie is using some of that for motivation. I don't know if this is real life. But what I'm telling you is I'm so damn invested in this match, and I want Eddie Kingston to win this so damn bad. The problem is it's freaking CM Punk, and he won't win it. Damn, CM Punk's going to win this.
Yeah, it's really a good feud build-up. I just want to see Eddie Kingston hold up his end of the bargain, make it a real good, interesting match. I think the crowd will be into it. Everybody will be into it. Eddie Kingston, you don't want to kind of establish him as somebody that is going to lose a lot of feuds because he's been in a lot with Moxley, then joined up with them and has lost quite a bit of matches. But I think just being in the ring and having a feud with CM Punk gets his name out there. Did you read that part of that feature that he did with the Players Tribune? Check it out. He bared his soul in regards to some of the life challenges he's been through and some of the wrestling journey. It was long and detailed, but it was never boring. So check it out. Eddie Kingston, somebody that has earned his spot, but yeah, he's not defeating CM Punk. It maybe you could maybe veer off into a no contest or whatever kind of fluky ending could happen where nobody wins, but I just think that CM Punk gets over.
It's interesting to me because he's a guy who I feel like you can really build around. Like the fans gravitate towards him. And it's because of how good he is on the microphone. At some point, I feel like he needs to be a primetime player. He needs to be in that echelon with guys, maybe not in that CM Punk echelon, right? Not now, not yet. But he needs to be a guy who is right there, right? He needs to be in that MJF. He needs to be in that Hangman Page. He needs to be in that and basically that group that maybe is right outside of guys who you deem untouchable. And I guess CM Punk, because of his history, would be deemed untouchable. But man, he does a great job getting you invested in the moment, getting you invested in the match. And I just need him to hold up his end of the bargain, like you said. And he's a guy who is always so damn interesting. Like when he grabs the microphone, you stop what you're doing just to listen to him. Almost similar. And Jim Cornette, I give Jim Cornette a lot of credit. Jim Cornette said this. He reminds him of Stone Cold Steve Austin. Do you remember when Stone Cold would show up at a match? He would grab a microphone. You'd stop everything you were doing. And you were fixated for the 5, 10, or 15 minutes that Stone Cold cut a promo. Stone Cold jumped in the ring. You were fixated. You watched the double bird. You watched him run and attack and jump on a guy and then just throw blows. You were fixated by Stone Cold Steve Austin. I think Eddie Kingston has a little bit of that. And man, I just wish he was promoted a little bit more and just elevated a little bit more in this company. All right. we are getting close to wrapping up. We've got 3 more matches to get through here. Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, Christian Cage versus Super Click, which consists of Adam Cole, Matt Jackson, and Nick Jackson. This is a trios match, so it's I'm assuming I probably should have did a little more research here. I'm assuming this is just going to be a 3-man tag match. Maybe all 3 of them can wrestle at the same time. Not 100% sure on that. That's my bad. I apologize. This should be a great match. Like we all love Adam Cole. Matt and Nick Jackson are fantastic. Jungle Boy, probably one of the most over guys in wrestling right now. Luchasaurus, he's a behemoth. And Christian Cage, you want to talk about guys who have basically lived off stuff that they've done in the past. Here's another guy who is great in the ring, but he did most of his stuff 10 years ago. So this should be a good one. How do you see this one playing out?
Oh boy, let's see here. As the pay-per-view goes on, you're going to have a great match. I'm wondering how, when you have a pay-per-view of this length, how are you going to pace it? You know, if CM Punk and Eddie Kingston bring the house down, is this kind of a match that, you know, potentially is the match that you put in the middle of, you know, a semi-main event? But, you know, this one's tough. This trios matchup is really interesting in that this has been a feud that's played out on television over the course of the last month or so, and you've had Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, and Christian Cage taking it out there with the Super Click, and I want to see Adam Cole, Matt Jackson. This one's really the hardest one for me to kind of decipher because both are equally talented, both have 2, you know, really up-and-coming people that you really want to see. I really want to see how Adam Cole is going to look in a trios match, but, you know, you look at it and you say that the Super Click probably is the more talented team. So I'm going to go with the Super Click.
So the way I think this plays out, you've seen Adam Cole basically talking to Bobby Fish. Last couple days, interfered in Bobby Fish's match versus Jungle Boy the other night. I think Bobby Fish plays a role in this win for the Super Click. I think Super Click ends up winning, but I think it is due to some interference from Bobby Fish, who plays a part in it. All right. We are damn near towards the end. We've got 2 more matches here. Now, this match, I was a little bit surprised the way they put it together. I think we all kind of anticipated that we would get a Cody Rhodes Malachi Black match, and I think we all assumed that we would get something with Pac and Andrade El Idolo at some point. I didn't think that they would end up being teamed together, though. But after kind of what unfolded on Dynamite, I guess this kind of makes sense. So Cody Rhodes and Pac versus Malachi Black and Andrade El Idolo in a tag team match. I'm not sure if Cody Rhodes and Pac get the win here. I think seeing Malachi Black continue to dominate is good. I think Andrade El Idolo continuing to dominate is good as well. The one that kind of messes this up for me is the inclusion of Pac. Like, if this was Cody Rhodes versus either one of those guys, I could see both those guys going over. You include Pac into this mix, and it makes me really start to question what's going to happen here, because I feel like Pac's a guy who needs a little bit of a win, needs a big victory here. And to me, it kind of seems like Pac kind of got thrust into this feud with these guys. I'm going to end up going Cody Rhodes and Pac on this one, but it is just because Pac is the outlier for me. It's weird for me to kind of pick against Pac in this one.
Hard for you to pick against Pac. I could see, absolutely what you're talking about going down, but I see it differently. I think at this point in time, you got to have Malachi Black and Andrade El Idolo get this one. I think that they're the, for me, I think Malachi Black and Andrade, I think, could do some things moving forward and move their way up from the mid card to the high end with tag teams, and even wreak havoc in the main event scene. So for me, Malachi Black and Andrade win it.
All right, now our main event. This one, I think, has all of us on the edge of our seat and interested. This has been some of the best storytelling that I think we have seen in such a long, long time. It's been a while since we've had a story arc basically go longer than a year. This has been going on for almost 18 months. This story arc has included the birth of Hangman Page's child. That's how long it's been going on. This storyline had an end built into it, and then they had to put it on pause because Hangman had to step away so he could go be with his newborn child. This has been, I think, some of AEW's finest work in a very short amount of time to be able to tell a story for over 18 years. Or I'm sorry, 18 months. 18 years is a long time. The company's only been around for 2, maybe 3. In order to tell a story for 18 months and have a couple different stops and to be able to pick it back up and to help keep it going, really interesting. And to be able to circle back to some of the material that you did a year ago and work it in to the current theme and the current story that is going on right now is fantastic writing. It's fantastic storytelling. It is this match right here has all the bells and whistles. And we've talked about this for a while now. Who would be the guy to dethrone Kenny Omega? Forever and a day, we all said it was going to be Hangman Page. And then Bryan Danielson showed up. And we said it was going to be Bryan Danielson. And CM Punk showed up. And we all thought, well, maybe, but maybe not. You and I went back and forth on this a couple of times. This right here, this match for me, I'm so impressed by everything that AEW has done with this. I'm so impressed by Hangman Page. I'm so impressed by what Kenny Omega has done as a heel character. I think it is absolutely unbelievable. I think it is great. And I think the go-home episode of AEW Dynamite was so damn good. Those final 15, 20 minutes, that segment between these two guys, it tugged at the heartstrings. It helped complete this story. This story has basically been completed. All we need now is the final chapter. That final chapter consists of Hangman Page dethroning and defeating Kenny Omega for the AEW World Championship. The moment is going to be special, and there's going to be an incredible pop, and this will be the great way to close out what is going to be a great pay-per-view. Hangman Page is your new AEW World Champion.
I agree. I think it's time. I think that it sets forth really for a good 4 or 5 months. Man, I think this one could be the match of the night. Which matches do you believe, if it's not this one, have the chance to steal the show? Maybe CM Punk, but it just kind of feels like they're more plotting, psychological. Maybe the Lucha Brothers match with the spots. Maybe Miro and Bryan Danielson, but this one should have the expectation that it should steal the night. It's going to be the main event. It's going to be probably at the end of a long show. So I do believe that you have a strong opportunity to really see an enjoyable match. So I'm thinking this one, and I agree. I think that you have to have Adam Hangman Page win it.
In this order, right? I'm going to give you my top 3 matches off this card. And it's really hard because I just scrolled through and I looked back over the card, and it is just chock full of outstanding matches. But I think this one will steal the show. I think this is going to be fantastic. I think you get that old Kenny Omega, that was in New Japan, who you had to stop everything you were doing. You had to figure out some way to illegally get that New Japan stream because you didn't own a Fightful subscription. I think this is going to be one of those matches. I think we even get it with one of the great entrances from Kenny Omega, because Kenny Omega's entrances for big pay-per-views are always incredible. So this is going to be my number 1. My number 2 will probably be, and you touched on it, right? You said spots. I think it's always fun to watch the Lucha Brothers and FTR have matches because they are conflicting styles. You've got one that's high flying and you've got one that's more mat technician. And I think those styles complement each other, and I think they make for great matches, especially when these guys who have the chemistry that they have work well together. So I think that'll probably be your number 2. And then it's kind of a coin flip for me, right? Because do I go Miro, Bryan Danielson, because you know they're going to tear the house down, or do you go CM Punk, Eddie? I'm going to go CM Punk, Eddie Kingston, just because of the psychological build towards this match has you so damn invested in it. And I think it's going to be a fantastic match. I don't think I'm going to like the outcome, but I think it's going to be a great match. So this sets up to be a great card. And in the predictions, I hold a 5-point lead over you, 9-4. Real quick, we both agree Hangman Page. I think Cody Rhodes and Pac defeat Malachi Black and Andrade. You think it's the other way around. We both have the Super Click defeating Jungle Boy, Luchasaurus, and Christian Cage. We both believe CM Punk wins this one. We also think the Lucha Brothers retain their belts. We both think Darby Allen wins. You think American Top Team beats the Inner Circle. I think the Inner Circle ends up walking away victorious in this one. We both have Britt Baker. We both have Bryan Danielson. And we both have Thunder Rosa and Shida winning this match. This is going to be a great card.
It's going to be fun, man. It's going to be a good time. I think we're going to grade this at least a B+ or higher, man. Saturday night, it's going to be good. All right, hit me with this week's professional wrestling news and notes. What made your list this week?
So a lot to get over here. And I also have a little nugget for you at the very, very end that you may want to stick around to. And if Doc gives me the time, it's going to be...
You got all the time, baby.
I don't know if it's going to be earth-shattering, but it's going to be good.
Ooh, you got all the time, baby. You can go as long as you need to, baby.
All right, so Bray Wyatt to Hollywood, ? It sounds as though we may see the former Bray Wyatt on the silver screen before we see him back in the wrestling ring. Let's try that again. It sounds like we may see the former Bray Wyatt on the silver screen before we see him back in a wrestling ring. Colosseum? I don't know. I can't say the word. But as a studio owner, Jason Baker told Alistair McGregor of Metro that he and Wyatt's real name, Wyndham Rotunda, are set to begin shooting a feature film in Tennessee later this month. He said he's a phenomenal collaborator. He becomes a really good friend, and we're actually... You're the first person that we're publicly telling this about. We're starting to film at the end of the month, Baker said. Baker described the movie as Ichi the Killer meets Xanadu. Rotunda was seen on the Warner Brothers lot last month, which fueled speculation that he may be filming something for a wrestling return. It seems that instead, Rotunda was with Baker meeting with Hollywood types trying to launch his movie career. So you may see Bray Wyatt, real name Wyndham Rotunda, starring in a feature movie coming up very, very soon. Now, 3 stars could be heading to Impact. A couple of weeks ago, Ring of Honor announced a hiatus after Final Battle 2021 in December, which also meant all of the contract wrestlers have been released by the promotion. While a number of the names have been mentioned in terms of possibly signing for WWE or AEW and Impact, very little is known about the future destination of any of the released talent. But Moose has a few guys he'd like to see added to the Impact roster. Moose said that he called Impact Executive Vice President Scott D'Amore as soon as Ring of Honor announced its hiatus and urged him to sign Jay Lethal and the Briscoe brothers. Briscoe brothers are absolutely fantastic, and Jay Lethal at one point did wrestle for Impact. Jay Lethal is a guy who I always have felt has been the biggest fish in the smallest pond and could go somewhere else and really, really star. Now, Keith Lee was one of 18 names released by WWE this past Thursday, and some more news has emerged regarding the possible reason. In what seems to be a similar situation to Bray Wyatt, it sounds like people in WWE believed Lee had attitude issues, or at least perceived attitude issues. Speaking for PW Torch, Wade Keller said, Keith Lee, who I have chronicled for months and months and months and months and months, was somebody that even people that were rooting for him behind the scenes became frustrated with. He just had, in general, attitude issues, or as one wrestler told me, perceived attitude issues. Hedging a little bit, others have said outright attitude problems, and he was just frustrated. I've heard different things about him in terms of his mood being altered way more than it should be in the modern era about being asked to do a job, aka lose a match. Not sure how much I buy into this really, but I would have attitude issues too if you basically scrap my entire gimmick that got me over and then you change my name to Bearcat. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not sure. I would be pretty pissed off if this was me and I was in Keith Lee's shoes. Keith Lee recently has come out and basically said that when he ended up with COVID and had the heart issue, he had to pay all of his medical bills. WWE has recently come out and refuted that and said, we took care of all of his medical bills. If Mr. Lee has a problem, he can contact us. So really interesting story and a little bit of back and forth going on between Keith Lee and WWE currently. Now, more fuel for the fire between Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair. Becky Lynch commented on Thursday on reporting backstage issues between her and SmackDown's Women's Champ Charlotte Flair. Appearing on the SI Media podcast with Jimmy Terran, Lynch divulged that she and Flair are no longer close despite previously being great friends. Last month, PW Insider reported that Lynch and Flair got heated with each other backstage following that segment on SmackDown where they had to basically exchange belts. When asked about the reported confrontation in her relationship with Flair, Lynch told Sharana, "I don't know, man. We don't talk anymore. We don't talk. So that's all I'll say is the locker room needs a hero sometimes, and sometimes somebody's got to be a hero. I'm all right being that hero. That's what I'll say on the matter." Lynch was also asked if she trusts Flair and said that she did not. Additionally, Becky said that she and Charlotte used to be best friends when asked if they were no longer friends. It's really interesting because we have their Survivor Series match coming up between these two. And working in the ring with somebody is incredibly difficult when you don't trust them. And it seems like Charlotte Flair has burned a lot of bridges in WWE, and one of those may be with Becky Lynch. So we might be expecting a fantastic match, but we might get a clunker. It'll be interesting to see what happens. All right. And here's a little nugget for you, okay? If you'll allow me the time, I've got I did some researching this morning, did a little bit of discovering on what we could expect coming up on AEW, possibly next week. I'm going to go out there on a limb, and I'm going to say this. Next week, New Japan Pro Wrestling's Okada will be on AEW television. All right? Let me explain why. So the faction recently has been getting a little bit of a nice push and a lot of mention on AEW TV, the whole Chaos faction. It's what Okada heads up. Now, Okada is in the United States, and he's competing this weekend at Battle of the Valleys. So you just had Orange Cassidy end up losing a match recently. You just had Rocky Romero show up. He ended up losing a match. Don't be surprised if Okada shows up. I would probably say maybe this Wednesday upcoming, or maybe they save him. Maybe he's the big star that gets everybody to tune into Friday night's Rampage. But I expect Okada to be on AEW television next week. Now, I've got nothing to confirm this. This is just me connecting dots, all right? So you'll hear it here first. Jock says Okada on AEW at some point, whether it's Wednesday or whether it's Friday this week. That's all we got for wrestling news and notes.
Ooh, blockbuster. More reason to tune into AEW. My goodness. Now, this week we went light on WWE, but still a lot of good things going on. We'll definitely tune in next week. A lot more to SmackDown and WWE as we see how the storylines progress with the likes of Kevin Owens, Seth Rollins, Big E. I think, some of the mid-card guys are starting to get an opportunity, so we'll see how that progresses and maybe talk about a wrestler that I think, after getting a push after WrestleMania, still needs to have his opportunity to shine, and maybe, just maybe, it'll happen. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSTROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Make sure if you've agreed or disagreed with anything, shoot us a tweet. We'll read it. We'll analyze it, explore it, have a fun sports debate. If you're watching tonight, the pay-per-view, feel free, message. We'll be browsing the interwebs, watching and commenting as, college football is going on, as well as a major wrestling pay-per-view. Thanks, cuz. We appreciate all your time, all your insights, all your research. Great stuff, and make sure you support all the Detroit wrestling community. Very strong, a lot of people that are into it, and we appreciate you guys subscribing to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.